Hold on. Oh, it's working. All right. Joe, you should be able to hear us now. I'm sorry. What was your comment that I'm getting paid by Sony?
No, I was saying if you were getting paid by Sony and by IGN, you wouldn't have to work. So clearly, you can't be being paid by both, and we all know that you're definitely being, pocketing some stuff from IGN.
Negative. Uh, as I said before, you guys couldn't hear me on Twitch. If you're pissed off about the what Sony announcement is, this ain't the show for you. You might want to skip this one because I'm just gonna piss you off more. And I said this.
Well, you're tricky. You're really good at pissing people off. So
Yeah, apparently, y- somebody decided they wanted to call me a PlayStation shill, and I'm not. I just see things different from you guys, and you guys know I criticize Sony just as much as you guys do.
I don't know if I would say as much as we do, but you know,
No.
I, I think that you, Tricky, enjoy playing devil's advocate more than other people. Like you're willing to take up that mantle. Like I'm generally just going to get on here and tell you my opinion. I don't necessarily feel the need to give the corporate view of things, whereas you are the famous quote of "It's not a price increase; it's a savings reduction." Like you tend to more so than the rest of us look at things from a corporate side of view, a very anti-player consumer point of view.
Well,
I
I,
would agree.
I don't disagree with that statement, but I would say I'm more of the lines of just in general. I always try to look at things from both sides, and if you guys are going to argue one side, even though I might not agree with it, I'm gonna put out the other side of the argument because there are two sides of a story, and like, yes, I in business focused, I tend to, you know, focus on the finances and the business aspect of things. But I'm also a gamer. Like the things that piss you guys off piss me off too. But I'm a little bit more accepting of it than you guys are, and we'll get more into that when
It'll be interesting to see how you piss people off because I think obviously you and I are both very digital focused. We're totally fine making digital purchases, but I myself took issue with the news this week, and maybe for a different reason, than, or maybe people may not know the reason, but I think that you and I might disagree, even though we basically buy all our games digitally on the PlayStation, and I think you and I will disagree on this.
well, when we get there, we'll get there. But in the meantime, I'm trying to find the agenda because I lost it. Let's do our updated trophy count. Yield, I'm assuming you got to all these because I didn't.
Well, yeah.
I'm just making sure, sir. I am level 988, total trophies of 35,949 with 1,048 plats. Alex?
Level 536, total trophy count of 11,396, and a platinum count of 212 in 211 games.
Yield?
Level 546 with a trophy count of 12,028 and a platinum count of 231.
Matt is level 224, total trophies of 1,395 with 0 plats. And Sid is level 902, total trophies of 28,168 with 869 plats. What's up, Dex? What's up, JP? Dex sent me a message right before we got started. He goes, "Are you guys going live? Because Daddy needs his fix." Well, you got your fix. We're live. We do not have a Sophie's Trophies, and Yield, I don't think we have a rarity update yet, do we?
No, we do not.
Okay. As far as the rarity update, I totally forgot to put the show out last week with the rarity
Well,
update.
I'm glad I recorded it.
Yield, it's been very busy for me. I was on vacation last week. I came back. My sweet mama D graduated high school, and then I went on vacation. So I was out of town, and I came back into town Thursday, and I've been working ever since. So it's been a long week. I just totally forgot to do it. I will get that out probably tomorrow afternoon. If you listen to this, if you're listening to this on Sunday or Wednesday, Sunday, listen to this on Wednesday, it should be ready to be out. All right, so no rarity update. Let's get into what we're playing. Yield, let's start with you, sir.
Oh, not much. I did a little Helldivers to make sure I qualified for the campaign that gave us a gun, which I haven't been back to check, but I've heard that we have successfully did that campaign. I jumped back into a PlayStation 4 game called Grip. Started messing around with that a little bit this weekend. I picked up another racing game called Exocross because it was super cheap, looked kind of cool, and it's punishing when you make a mistake. So frustrating and cool at the same time. You know, you can't just arcade your way through it. You got to kind of be precise. And I've been playing a lot of Roadcraft on my own and with Nitro and Prepare to Die Scum as we work our way through that game. That's it.
All right, Alex.
So I actually have to give Tricky credit for some of what I've been playing, because Tricky had let me know, unbeknownst to me, that they had released photo mode trophies for Saros. Now, if you've been a listener for any amount of time, you know that one, I really enjoyed Saros. Two, I also love taking photos in video games. You know, just kind of little mementos. You know, you have your trophies, they kind of remind you of all the milestones you hit, but also, like, it's nice to have pictures to remember some of the adventures you've been on. And so I took to photo mode in Saros, and so the way it works is there's 9 new trophies, nothing extremely difficult, but for each trophy, it's basically in each biome, they give you a description of something you needed to frame into a picture. You don't have to take the picture, you just bring up photo mode, you frame it, but and then you get credit for doing the trophy. But basically, each biome has its own specific picture you need to take. So it's kind of its own little puzzle riddle thing. Nothing's too hard. So it was nice to go through the game again, get some new pictures through photo mode, get new pictures of Architect and Priestess, and some of the really cool bosses in that game, but also some like just nice views from the world itself, from Corcosa. So. Or Carcosa. Is it Corcosa or Carcosa? I can't remember. But nice to experience Saros again through a different lens and get trophies for it. There is a 9th trophy which you get for taking pictures, close-up pictures of 5 alpha creatures, which are tougher enemies, which is, just a nice way to kind of put the cherry on top of that sundae. So playing a little bit of Saros, getting those trophies, and again, it's a free download, it's a free update. You don't have to pay, so it's nice to get extra trophies without having to pay anymore. Then also playing more Hellblade. I don't want to say my opinion of this game has changed, but I will say that Hellblade feels like the least video gamey of all of Ninja Theory's games. It very much feels like you are playing an epic, like you're playing through an epic story, and they're just telling you this tale. And at some points, it's very clear that the lore and the story and the characters are more important than the gameplay. I feel like some of the things that Heavenly Sword got knocked for, I haven't seen people mention about Hellblade, and maybe they're out there, I just didn't see them. But Hellblade, a couple of the knocks on Ninja Theories, or not on Heavenly Sword, were that, did Ninja Theory also make Heavenly Sword? Or who made Heavenly Sword? I can't remember.
I think it was Ninja Theory. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, because I know Factor 5 made Lair, and that came out around the same time, but I forget. But there's not a ton of combat in Hellblade, especially after you get past Valravn and Cert. So, but the campaign is relatively short, much like Heavenly Sword, and there's very little variance in all the enemies. There's a few enemy models, and then that's about it, aside from the bosses, and maybe one executioner enemy once you beat the first 2 bosses to get past the door to Hela. So, Tricky, did you find that answer?
Yes, it is made by Ninja Theory.
Okay, so I mean, I definitely feel like some of the things that Ninja Theory got knocked for in Heavenly Sword, you could also say about this game. Again, the sound design is fantastic. All like the I guess I should say the technical parts of Hellblade are pretty great, but the gameplay at times, like once you get to the middle of the game and you start doing Odin's trials and stuff like that, it feels like the pace just deadens, and there's a part where, and I get it, like you fall off a bridge, you have an encounter with Hela, and you fall off a bridge and you fall however many feet onto a beach, and your character is struggling to walk. Obviously, makes sense. You're injured. You want the player to feel that. But in a video game sense, I'm trying to get through this area and find all these collectibles, and I'm just like trying to will Senua along because she's moving slowly. And while I understand that mixes in with the story and kind of conveys the emotions and the struggle that Senua is going through, it's not always the best video game thing, because when it kills the pace of the game, I'm not knocking them for it. But if someone said they played Hellblade, and you look at Hellblade 2, and it's, from what initial sales we can tell, didn't sell super fast to start off. If someone played the first game and said it's not video gaming enough for me, I would kind of understand why they wouldn't want to play the rest of the series, to be perfectly honest. So there are many positives about the game. Like I said, the lore and the story, but once you get to the middle of the game, it just kind of drags a little bit, and I'm kind of like, man, this pace is just kind of like, when you want to come home and play a game, you just don't want to move at a caterpillar's crawl, and to tell this story, they kind of need to do that. So I kind of understand why people might move away from the Hellblade saga. And some of those trials, I don't mind some of them, like the Labyrinth trial and the blindness trial, but man, that swamp trial is terrible. Like the whole maze you have to go through with the fire mob chasing you, and you got to find 3 symbols to get out the door. I absolutely hated that, and it seems like that one had a lot of people online really in not a great spot. People would complain about how many times they died to it. It's just certain those Odin's trials, they're not fun. I'll say that. At least specifically the swamp one's not fun. So I do think when I look back at Hellblade, there are things about it I really like. I like the use of lore. It does make you question, because the story of Baldur that they tell in one section of that game, and about Baldur's death, very much flies in the face of how Sony portrayed Baldur in God of War when they switched to the Norse mythology. So it's odd to see how different companies and different studios interpret the characters. But one thing I will say very positive, and something I didn't pay attention to when I first played through the game, is you're in Helheim, and traditionally when you think of the underworld or hell, it's a very awful, terrible, demonic place. Very just, it's a place you wouldn't want to travel or be for very long. And their view of Helheim and kind of just the way they portray it is a very interesting look at Helheim. I don't know enough about Norse mythology to know how accurate it is, but just the way their version of hell is, it's very unique, very interesting. And so I do like that, the way they portrayed it. A very, once you get into like the second part of the game, it's a very lonely experience, and it's kind of just a very different form, of hell than you might think of. So I do like the way they portrayed hell. I think it's a very unique and a very unconventional way to kind of show everything. So like I said, the use of the lore in that game is pretty spectacular. But combat and, enemy design, like it all feels very just kind of like shallow, so to speak. And you can tell that their main focus was putting out a really good story as opposed to a really good, action, third-person action game. So, I mean, overall, I still think it's a good game, but I do look back on it and say, like, of all their games I've played, I never played Heavenly Sword, but that game is obviously very action-heavy, very arcadey. I mean, you look at stuff like DMC, you look at Monkey and Trip in Enslaved Odyssey of the West. These games feel more like just epic narratives you play through, and less like games. Like they're like the least video gamey games that I think Ninja Theory makes. So again, haven't played Hellblade 2, but the first Hellblade definitely feels like the gameplay was kind of secondary to everything else. But I mean, I would still encourage people to play it. I would still encourage people to play through the game with headphones. But I don't know if either of you have played Hellblade and you have similar feelings, but it just feels, again, like you're playing through a story rather than a video game. And in certain places, it kind of kills the pace. But yeah, I mean, it's a very well-made game. But I can also understand why people might be turned off to that kind of game when people sometimes feel like they're just part of a story, and rather than, having complete agency in a video game. So.
All right. What have I been playing? I don't know. I've been playing some Division 2, obviously. I started playing some James Bond, got a couple missions in. Yield, how far are you in James Bond? You played any?
Still at the same spot I was the last time we talked about it.
You haven't played it at all, huh?
No. My wife and I have been busy, so we have not been able to play it.
All right. And then
No, it's okay, Yield, because only Tricky's busy, and only Tricky doesn't have time to do things.
Except play some GoldenEye. Or not GoldenEye, some First Light.
Yeah, well, see, okay, so with First Light, the game's good. I'm not going to say anything bad against it, but it doesn't keep my attention. I play like one mission and I want to turn it off. Played a little Darksiders. Gentlemen, I am proud to say I am now the owner of the Aerial Predator trophy.
Did my tips help you, or did you listen to those at all?
I did not listen to you at all.
Did you watch a video on it?
I did not. I just sat there and used a quad save and probably did it like 50 times. Finally got it.
If you had listened to me, you probably could have saved yourself some time there, but all right.
Well, I tried my hardest not to listen to you, so.
Well, see, and here's an instance where it helped you, because my second time doing it, I got 98%. I was like, I went back and because I had to go to work, so I was trying to hustle through it and do one more time before I had to go to my Friday night shift to work. And I looked at the trophy progress and I got 98%. And I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. You absolutely have to be kidding me. But yeah.
So I will be playing that more. I just got frustrated because I got to, what the hell is the boss's name? Tiamat. And
Tricky, you having trouble with the first big boss?
Well, I'm also playing on apocalyptic difficulty, so.
Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just do what I told and
because
get the abyssal armor?
Because I'm not a big wuss and I play games on the hardest difficulties to get that trophy out of.
You absolutely do not.
You're so full of shit.
Can I finish my statement before you guys both cut me off?
No. Go ahead.
I play on the hardest difficulty to knock out all the difficulty trophies first. If there's no difficulty trophies, I always play on the easiest setting. That's what I was going to say before you both cut me off.
Yeah, well, let's see how long you're stuck on the first boss then.
Well, she destroyed me in like 2 seconds, but in my defense, it's because I didn't remember the sequence of what I was supposed to do, and she basically took me out in 2 shots. So, it's not for lack of trying, it's just I forgot her sequence and got destroyed, and then I just started playing Assassin's Creed Rogue. I thought that I...
So you obviously went back to playing Darksiders after that then, right?
After what?
After you started playing Rogue, you're like, oh, nope, go back to Darksiders.
No, I actually like Rogue. But I'm going to say a hot take here, and Yield, I feel like you're going to be the one that says something about this.
Oh my God, are you going to say that Rogue is better than Black Flag?
No, why can't you let me talk?
Because you say it's a hot take, and this is the hot takiest thing I could think of in Assassin's Creed.
I'm just gonna say I think in Assassin's Creed games the ship travel and combat is the worst thing in Assassin's Creed games.
That's such a hot take.
I know. Because and hear me out. It's not that it's bad. It's very
it's not good either.
It's not the best, but it is so clumsy. Because you get into a battle and you're fighting 4 or 5 ships, fine. But they can turn a lot faster than you can, trying to line up your shots. It's so frustrating. So frustrating.
I mean, get good.
Yes, but now I did read.
Which I hate that saying.
Yeah, listen. I thought I'd never beat Rogue, but I looked at the trophies and apparently I did beat it. So I don't remember the story, so I'm playing through that right now, and I'm actually being able to enjoy the story. But I did read the trophy guide, obviously, and apparently you could turn on a cheat and turn yourself undestroyable, which makes all the ship battles much easier. But I did. But the caveat to that is, if you whatever you're doing, you have to do it in one shot, because once you turn on a cheat in the Assassin's Creed game, you cannot save the game. So everything you do after you turn on that cheat will not be saved. So it's not like I can turn the cheat on, do the ship battle, and then go back. I gotta do it in one shot, or I gotta start all over again. So that will only help me when I go for the legendary ships. So at least that's easier for me. And that's it. That's all I've been playing. Black Flag comes out in 4 days on the 9th. So that would be the day after you guys are hearing us on podcast services. And that's all I've been playing. Other than I played some Decoration Rush to get my 20 trophies. So, all right, gentlemen, we're going to get into our topics. Our first topic is coming from The Verge, written by Tom Warren. I want to give a shout out to Matt, who's obviously not here, but he did make the agenda and did leave me with notes, so I didn't have to read all the articles to know why he put him in the agenda. So thank you, Matt. Appreciate you. First topic: Xbox weighs in on canceling Blade game and shuttering Arcane. Xbox is expected to make an announcement next week, as per sources familiar with Microsoft plans. Of those plans possibly include shuttering Arcane and the current Blade game they're making. Arcane, if you don't know, is best known for making the Dishonored series, and sources say Microsoft is exploring options to sell the studio as an option against closing it down. So, Yield, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on the Blade game possibly being canceled and another studio being shut down?
Unfortunately, it's where we're at right now. As for a Blade game, I enjoyed the movies. I don't know if I would enjoy a video game on it, but yeah, maybe I'll have something more to say when you guys bounce something out, but that's all I got.
All right, Alex, your thoughts?
Oh, Microsoft and Sony fist fighting each other for who's the new biggest villain in the industry.
Sony's got this one.
I think that closing studios gives, we can disagree, but I think closing studios and making sure those people can lose their jobs and can't make games is a bigger deal than the other story we'll talk about. But again, we can have different opinions. No, I don't know who they're going to sell them to. I've maintained that I don't think there's a lot of companies in the market to buy people or to buy entire studios. But I mean, for a company that made Dishonored, Arcane, that I know everything they've made hasn't hit like Dishonored, but it's a really good game. Never played the second game, but did play and platinum the first game. Really good game. And, it's just kind of one of those things where Microsoft has enough money to keep all these studios open. You absolutely know that they have, the money to do it. I think Arcane was still under the Bethesda umbrella. So, that big Bethesda purchase, which seemed like a great idea, and now if we start chopping the limbs off Bethesda, I think they've had layoffs at Bethesda since Microsoft bought them, but closing down an entire studio would be pretty catastrophic. But again, it sends me back to the it cost $400 million rumor to cost $400 million to make Gears of War E-Day. I don't know if any one game is worth the closure of 4 studios, because since we talked about that story, there's been 3 and possibly a 4th now studio closing at Microsoft, and studios, as we've known, who've made really good games. And so, again, I think that if it is true that game cost $400 million, the amount of studios you could have saved, workers you could have retained by simply just keeping that game in budget. And I'm sorry, in recent years, recent games of Gears of War seem to have left fans of that series disappointed. Just like Halo, once the original creators dropped it, it has never retained the magic of what first was. And I guess with a new Gears of War game, there's always going to be like some hope, and there's going to be an audience that's like, okay, maybe we're going to get back on track. But no one game, you still could have made a really good Gears game at $200 million and probably saved these other studios. So I don't know what's going on at Microsoft, but shuttering a bunch of studios in the name of spending, all this money on Halo and Gears of War, I just don't even think it's the best idea anymore.
Well, let me clarify something. None of these studios have been shut down. This is all just rumors and speculation at this point. So
It wasn't confirmed that Ninja Theory is shut down.
no, it was not confirmed that they are shut down. That's all rumors and speculation right now. The stories that we're hearing is that they're, instead of being shut down, they're trying to shop them off to maybe sell them off to somebody. I have not seen any confirmation, and I could be wrong. And correct me if I'm wrong in the comments and whatnot. But I have not seen any confirmation where a studio has been shut down. I just heard the rumors and speculation that Microsoft is looking to offlift them. And I also saw something, and I don't know if you guys covered it last week. I'm also seeing rumors and speculation that Microsoft is actually trying to branch off of Xbox and make it its own independent entity, so they're self-sufficient on themselves. I don't know if that's true, but it from everything I'm reading and seeing lately, it sounds like Microsoft is trying to distance themselves from Xbox and have Xbox be their own thing.
Which is funny because they just well, we had, heard stories after Ashley Sharma had come out and said, "Oh, it's still Xbox," because everyone thought it was going to be Microsoft Gaming at some point, and they were just
Right.
going to completely drop the brand of Xbox. And then what we heard, the rumors that Xbox was going to be out on its own, kind of spun off as its own independent thing. Which, if that's true, then unloading some of these studios and kind of trying to cut some of the losses
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But let me just throw this out to you guys, and I just thought about this while you guys were talking. Being that Arcane is making a Blade game, what if Sony was to buy Arcane and bring all the Marvel games under one roof? Now you have two studios making Marvel games.
You know what the problem with that is? As much as it might sound like a good idea, especially since, Insomniac has been really good with the Spider-Man games, and obviously Wolverine looks really good. The problem with that is, how much in licensing fees is Sony going to be paying to Disney and Marvel for this?
I don't know, but I mean, if you bring Arcane under the Sony umbrella, this is just my initial thoughts. If you bring Arcane under the Sony umbrella, then you could bounce ideas back and forth between the two studios. So Insomniac could actually help Arcane make a better Blade game. Because all we know of Blade so far is, one, we never got confirmation that it was going to be an Xbox exclusive. There's always been a rumor that it possibly could be coming to the PS5. And two, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, maybe you'll get it.
The only thing we've seen of the Blade game is a CGI trailer. We haven't seen any gameplay. We haven't seen anything other than the official, the initial announcement of they were making the game. So we don't know how far on development it is. We don't know anything about it other than it was announced, and that's it. We don't know if it's exclusive. We don't know if it's coming to the PS5. We don't know nothing. So, Yield, what's your thoughts on Sony possibly purchasing Arcane and bringing them all the Marvel games under one umbrella?
We should make it very clear that this is just Tricky's hypothetical.
Yeah.
There's been no word about this. There's not even rumors out there. Tricky is just suggesting something.
Yeah. I'm not saying this is any way, shape, or form. I'm just, when you guys were talking, I was thinking, if Microsoft if Xbox is looking to unload Arcane, and for a potential buyer, instead of shutting down the studio, maybe Sony buys them. That was just my initial thought. So, Yield, your thoughts on it.
I would say if Sony's would buy anything from Microsoft, you buy a really proven studio, not somebody who happens to be doing their very first Marvel game just to put all of Marvel under one roof. That's my opinion. And like Alex said, the licensings would just be crazy.
Let me see what else Arcane has made. They have made we said the Dishonored games, right? They made Deathloop. They made Prey, and they did Wolfenstein Youngblood.
Did they also not help in the kind of
They,
the development of one of the BioShock games too?
it does not say, but they also were behind Redfall, which came out in a mess, and I think got shut down very quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a failure,
Yeah,
to put it kindly.
yeah. They've had 3 games canceled, but not. But that was all the way back in the latest one was in 2010. So, I mean, they do have a portfolio that is somewhat impressive. The Dishonored games were pretty good. Prey was pretty good. Wolfenstein Youngblood, I didn't hear anything bad about it. And Deathloop, I heard, was pretty good as well. So, I don't know. I think it just my speculation. If Arcane was to be resurrected, I think Sony should buy them. But Sony has their own problems right now, so
Yeah, I don't think Sony should buy anybody for the short time. For the short term, because they're a mess. They got to figure out what they're doing. They're still coming off all those canceled live service games that they decided not to make, and they've just had too much blood on their hands when it comes to layoffs and closing their own studios. That I think buying Arcane, especially, I mean, if you're Arcane and Sony says, "Hey, we'll buy you," then I guess that's if you can't afford to buy yourself again and go independent again, then I guess it's the only thing that'll save you. Then I guess, yeah, you go ahead. But in any other instance, if you were independent and Sony's like, "Hey, we want to buy you," you'd probably be like, "No, we're good. We'll do our own thing." I just think Sony has too many problems to buy anybody at this point.
all right. Joe says Xbox canceling the game, shocker, and Dex says Deathloop. I guess he was we were talking about other games. Since you both are here, while I go into the next topic, throw your opinion about Sony buying Arcane. Our next topic is coming from Bloomberg and written by Jason Schreier. I think I shared this article, but I don't think I shared a Jason Schreier one. Top suicide developers say the flop made them not want to make games anymore. Two former
What? Read that headline again.
Two Suicide Squad developers say the flop made them not want to make games anymore. Did I say it wrong the first time?
The way you read it, you said top suicide developers or something. It was very weird the way it came out, so I just wanted clarification.
I thought maybe I said it wrong. All right. Two former developers of Rocksteady's Suicide Squad game lamented how the studios pushed for live service and the length of time it took to develop the game. It felt like less like a game and more like a product. Alex Rydby, one of the game's directors, and Johnny Armstrong, a designer, discussed how meetings became more about player engagement and recouping the investment than making a game a game. They both left after the game's launch and remembered that despite making smash hits, the new reality of making a live service game was a shocking adjustment. They recall that multiple delays and design changes resulted in a game that, despite all the hours put in, it wasn't getting tangibly better. Despite this, they banded together to make a new game launched via Kickstarter, where they're not beholden to stockholders and designed by executives. So, before we go into that, Dex says Sony could use the money they save on the physical discs to buy them. All right, Dex, we're going to get into that. And Joe,
what money that they're going to save, because they're not saving any.
And Joe says, "Where's Will?" Will, unfortunately, due to technical reasons, could not be on the show tonight. I wanted Will to come on for our topic of the week, but let's get back to our topic at hand. Alex, when I shared this, you made a comment in the chat saying that you wanted to stop playing games after Suicide Squad came out.
Yeah, I mean, they release a big stinky pile of horseshit like this, and who wants to play games anymore?
It wasn't a bad game. I don't know why. Oh my god! I'm having flashbacks. Go ahead.
Sales figures say otherwise.
I'm having flashbacks to you guys giving me shit about The Division. You never played the game, but you owe shit on it. Listen, I'm not saying Suicide Squad.
You shit on plenty of games. That was a
I
joke.
I'm not saying Suicide Squad was game of the year material in any way, shape, or form, but it was not a bad game. I don't think it should have been a live service game. I think it should have been a single player, third person action adventure, but it is what it is at this point. But it was not a bad game. And
With non-flying superheroes who could fly.
and Dex says, I have to back Tricky on that. Thank you, Dex. And Joe says, if Tricky would give up Division for 6 months, he could win the trophy competition. All right, we're not going down that path right now, okay? All right, let's go back to the topic at hand. Alex, Suicide Squad made these guys want to quit the industry. You are you with them in their feelings, or are you like, maybe they're just making a big deal?
I think when you are making a game and you want to make a game a certain way, but you have people above your head calling the shots and forcing you to make a game that you don't want to make, I mean, I think that could make anyone be like, you know what? I'm not doing this because I enjoy it. I'm just doing it for the paycheck. And I definitely think that can affect the way you look at your job, your career. Even if you love video games, if you just have to put out something that is only meant to make money and that you're not proud of, or you don't, it's not the exact way. Because if I like, think about, you want to, shoot a movie a certain way. You see director's cuts of movies quite often, but the studio says, no, you got to cut this much runtime, you got to cut this content from it, or this many minutes from it, because the runtime has to hit this. You kind of like, man, this is my project. I'm making this, but you guys are telling me kind of what I have to make or how much I have to cut. Like, it can be frustrating. So I totally understand. I mean, I think Suicide Squad was doomed from the start because you saw the movies come out. I don't think anyone was necessarily enthralled with the movies, even, with big stars like Will Smith and Margot Robbie in it. I think that as a choice for a villain group or a starring group, I have always maintained that I thought that the Suicide Squad was a really terrible choice. And maybe not everyone agrees with that. That's fine. I just think that if you're going to make a game centered around, interesting characters that, you're trying to sell to as many people as possible, I would think you want characters that have more widespread appeal than, say, the Suicide Squad. So I think from the start that game was kind of doomed, regardless of how good it was. But if you're making a game and you're constantly being told, no, change this, when you don't agree with that, it's like, why the fuck am I doing this? I don't enjoy what I'm doing. It's just a job at this point.
All right, Yield, your thoughts?
So Sony's great philosophy of live service games has run its ugly head again.
Well, this isn't Sony.
This wasn't a Sony game.
This was Rocksteady.
No, but still, they want to turn it to Sony's path of live service games. Either way, but no, Alex pretty much hit the nail on the head. That if you're trying to create something, and this is the way you want to do it, and other people, be it higher above your corporation, be it Sony, whoever, no, we need to do this. We need to go this direction. And then you go that direction because you have to, and then your game does what it did. Yeah, I would be like, why am I doing this? This is not fun. So I don't blame them bravo for them rallying around each other and continuing to make games and going with the Kickstart route where nobody can tell you that I don't like this. You need to do it this way. So,
well, technically, it can. You gotta. It will affect your money. Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and defend live service games, but I think the three of us could all agree that the industry was moving towards live service as being a very popular genre, and you can't blame a lot of studios for trying to jump on that bandwagon.
Yes, you can. Because you can definitely you can swing too far in one direction. You got to recognize and you got to be smart about not every game needs multiplayer. Not every game fits into a live service mold.
I agree with you. There's no debate there. But I'm just saying that if a developer decided, hey, listen, we can make money if we put out a good live service game, you can't blame them for trying that route. I mean, you two both play a live service game, two of them, two live service games pretty regularly. You guys play Rocket League, and you also play Helldivers. Both of those are live service games.
I just play Helldivers now.
Oh, you don't play Rocket League anymore?
I ain't touched Rocket League in probably 6 to 8 months.
Okay, but you did play Rocket League for a good while.
For a good while, yes.
So
Yeah, just because people play certain games that have live service to them does not mean that it's going to work for a Batman game or a Robin game or like an X-Men game.
No, I'm not trying to make that argument at all. I'm just saying, like, live service games, like, the way I hear you guys talk about live service games is like they are the scum of the earth. But
I have always maintained, because apparently Tricky doesn't understand what I've said. I've maintained that live service has its place in video games, but it's not for everything. I've never said that doing live service is like you're, kicking homeless people on the streets.
And
like,
trying to flood the market with live service games is also not good either, because like we said in the other episodes, then you take those handful of games that are live service that are doing very, very well, and you flood the market with live service games. Now you take those set of games that are doing really well, and now you fracture that player base, because now they're got to play here, they got to play there, they got to play there, and none of the other new ones that have come out have that success as these ones that are already here, because they're playing everywhere.
see, my problem with live service games is you can, like you were saying, you can't flood the market with it because you can't. My devotion to like the Division 2, I've been playing that game for 7 years now. I played the Division before that for what, 3-4 years before Division 2 came out. So 10 years of my life, I've been playing Division games. I'm grateful that they're still releasing content, but it is a chore to log into the Division every week to make sure that I get whatever it is available for that week or do whatever mission it is for that week. And yes, I say it's a chore, but I enjoy doing it, but it is a chore because I can't sit here and focus on Assassin's Creed Rogue. I can't sit here and focus on Darksiders or whatever game I'm going to play because I have to go back for FOMO. Like, that's what it is. So, like this particular week, they're running a global event. I went in and knocked out the events for the first 4 days, got the most I can do, and now I feel once I got that done, I was like, okay, now I can stop playing this, and I can go focus on Rogue. I can go focus on, Darksiders, whatever I wanted to play. I have no idea what the hell Joe is trying to say. He just said fear of missing out on shit crystals. I don't know what that's reference to. Anyway.
Probably it's whatever currency you're trying to get your gain.
There's no crystals in the game. I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe JP is confused about that.
Yeah. So it's, I enjoy, and take the fact that it's a Division. I enjoy a live service game because if the game is good and they're releasing content for it, and it gives me a reason to keep playing the game. For that reason, I like the live service games. But, like Yiel pointed out, you can't flood the market because how do you expect somebody to keep up with Helldivers, Division, Rocket League, Fortnite, Call of Duty, whatever it is? You know what I'm saying? It's... Joe says, share crystals can take the form of any collectible in-game. Shit crystals can take the form of any collectible in-game. All right, fair enough. But you can't, if you put out too many live service games, something's going to suffer. So, like Yield said, you can't flood the market with them because they all possibly can't succeed. It's not possible. So, all right, closing thoughts on...
I do want to add one thing. It's back to our original topic of the developers. I mentioned, being in Hollywood and making movies. Think about that on a larger scale, because when you make a video game, we're seeing some video games take, they take generally multiple years. It used to be back in the days of the NES or the PS2, like sometimes you could, produce a game in like a year. Now it's like, oh, it's taking multiple years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to make a game. So think of it on that scale of where you're trying to make something and 5 years of your life, 4 years of your life is just sucked away because you're making a game you don't really necessarily like because someone else told you to. So again, more understanding towards the developers where they're like, yeah, we really didn't want to make games anymore because if it's happened on one project, who says that the folks at Warner Brothers won't be like, yeah, do this for this one too?
All right. Moving on to our next story. This is coming from The Verge, also written by Tom Warren. Xbox is testing the disc to digital feature that digitizes a physical game collection. Sources say Xbox is testing a feature that will allow users to transfer a physical game to a digital license. Rumored to work on the Xbox One and Series systems, it's not expected to work on the 360 games. What's left up in the air is exactly how it's going to work if you loan that game to a friend. The theory is that you lose your digital license if that game goes to being a digitally licensed on another console and Microsoft account. There's more testing to be done, so we suspect more info will be released in the following months. So, Yield, I'll go to you first. You are the physical guy on this show.
Yeah.
Matt is, PC. He does digital. Me and Alex mostly get our games do digital. Means you are the only one on the show that really focuses still on the physical. Do you like this idea that you can take your physical disc, put it in your system, and get a digital license for the game?
No,
And why is that?
because they can still take that digital license away.
But you still have the disc,
So why do I need a digital license?
so you could play without the disc.
That's
I
yeah.
I feel like I'm arguing something that I'm not really agreeing with, but I'm just saying. But you're asking the questions, and I'm answering them because
Yeah. I for some reason I feel dumbfounded by that. I'm like, why would I need a digital copy if I have a physical copy? It feels
Because
like
these companies are trying to get you more comfortable with not having a disc.
that's got to be it. You're trying to condition me to go digital. If I want to go digital, I'll go digital. So quit spend your money somewhere else. Quit wasting it trying to do that, because I can't share a digital file, and Sony has shown twice that they can just delete stuff off your system. So no.
I,
Well, that's never happened with games, right? It's only
No,
movies, right?
no, it's only happened with movies, but
well, no, no,
after,
no,
after
no. It happened with one game, but you
Was that
can't.
Scott Pilgrim?
No, well, no, because that was delisted. That's different. But you could also argue it wasn't a game; it was just a demo, and I'm talking about PT. PT was on the
but
store,
also,
and
Well, nobody
no,
paid for
we'll get into
PT
that
though.
later.
You couldn't buy
that
PT, right?
that well, no, you didn't pay for PT. It was a demo, and technically they didn't remove it from your systems. They just made it so you can't download it again, which is the same as delisting it.
But
But
if it's in your but if it was in your file, you can't download it again.
right, the difference between Scott Pilgrim and PT was if you deleted it off your system, you could not re-download PT. Scott Pilgrim, if you owned the license for it, you could re-download it. That's
See,
the
in
difference.
essence, that's still taking it off your system, because if you have it in your even though it was a free demo, you have it in your purchase history, and they're taking it off your purchase history.
Yeah, what Sony did with the movies was they just removed it out of your they removed it out of your library so you couldn't watch it, but with the movies you couldn't download them. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like they were taking it off your system. They just removed it from your account, which is the same thing they did with PT, but PT was if you had it on your system, you could play it, it worked, but if you ever deleted it, you could not re-download it. So, but so when I saw this, because we're gonna get into our topic of the week next, but when I saw this, and maybe I'm wrong for my way of thinking of this, I'm thinking Xbox is testing this feature because they're also going to go discless for their next console, and they want you to be able to take all your games with you. Because essentially right now, Yield, just hypothetically, we'll throw this out there right now. Yield buys the PS6. He can, and let's say the PS6 is backwards compatible with the 4 and the 5. He can't play a lot of his games on the 6 because he can't put the disc in the 6. Where Xbox, if they get this working, or your Xbox One and Series games can go with you, it's just going to go on a digital license. That was my thinking when I saw this. Maybe I'm wrong.
But if the new, okay, you can put it on your own system. Never mind. I answered my own question as I went to ask it.
But I mean that's initially what I thought. I don't know if you guys think that's plausible, whatnot, but that's what I thought. That Xbox is saying basically, like they're soft telling us, listen, Sony announced this, and we're doing the same thing, but we're testing the waters right now before we actually come out and say, no, we're going discless as well. Yield.
I think it's very plausible. I mean, that's what a lot of push has been. I mean, you can see it in department stores. You can go to a Target and Walmart and Best Buy, and you can see the video game sections have shrunk. The amount of physical media you can buy at those stores has absolutely shrunk. Like there's they completely took movie section, or nearly took the entire of movie sections out of these stores, or most of what you could buy. So it's not just video games; it's a lot of physical media in general. And it's been because the Target and Walmart and all these other stores are reacting to what these companies are doing. So it's, what Tricky is saying is, again, I think it's very plausible that they're, going to move to an all digital console and not have a disc drive. And within, if not the next generation, the next couple. And this is all to kind of guard against people who can't play these games on next generation console and they want to take them over. It's, Tricky's assertion that or at least his guess.
My theory
could be that, we want to get the wording right, that it could be as a way to offer backwards compatibility to people who still have their disc with them. I think is very plausible. And it would not surprise me if that's what is at the core of this.
Yield, your thoughts?
It is a nicer way of saying that we're going to go discless.
Because here's the thing, and sorry, Yield, I want to let you continue, but I think that there are some things that Sony and Sony and Microsoft communicate on, and I think that going discless and pushing digital is something that both those companies probably have talked about with each other. Because Sony announcing this is probably not it. Sony pushing for this isn't just them doing it. I guarantee Microsoft is also pushing for this as well.
All right. Any final thoughts before we go to our listener question? I'm going to assume that's a no. All right, so let's go to our listener question.
Time to check my social media, yeah.
I haven't hosted in a while, so I forgot to pull them up. So I'm pulling them up right now. Questions, as my webpage just froze. 1 second. Here we go. First question coming from Jeremy. I have a pressing question. Is this really the series finale of the Trophy Whores? Sounds like the crew was ready to retire and ride off into the sunset. So Alex, I don't know if you know this. Yield, you might be aware of it. I was listening to a preview of the show last week where you guys said the show runs much smoother without me. So I announced that I was going to be retiring from the show and letting you guys host it from now on. So I'm assuming that's what this is in preference to. Nitro in the chat says, "Who is this new host?" Ha ha, you're funny. So no, this is not the series finale. Excuse me, I'm burping. This is not the series finale. I was just remarking to them, hurting my feelings and saying that the show runs better without me. You guys want to leave any make any comments with this?
We're gonna keep recording as far as I know, so.
All right.
We don't even have season finales. There's no finales at all for the show.
Okay. Roberto says, how do you think providers like Evercade will fit into this reality we are facing? Now, I'm not familiar with Evercade, so give me 1 second and I will Google them.
Is it in some way combining Forever and Arcade?
From what I can see, it is a retro game console. That's what I'm saying. It's a retro game console.
Does it list any of the games it can play?
There are collections. Right now, I am seeing. Okay, there's an Activision collection. There is a Rare collection and a Neo Geo collection. I'm looking real quick. It looks like the system's not out yet. It's coming in October, and you could pre-order one for $200. Let's see. Cartridges. Let's see. All right, so let's just pick one at random. Let's go with the Rare collection. The Rare collection is going to include 12 games, which includes Jetpack, Lunar Jetman, Saber Wolf, Attic, Underworld, Night Lore, RC Pro-Am, Gunfight, Cobra Triangle, Battletoads, Conquerors, Pocket Tales, and Battletoads Arcade. So, I don't know how this would affect them because it looks like they're coming out with their own cartridges, and these are for retro games. So, I'm not exactly sure what he's referencing as far as saying how in this reality we're facing. Matt did leave a comment to it saying, good question. Let's see how many of the hosts know what you're talking about. See? There you go. So
yeah, we may have to wait until Matt comes back for this. But I'm assuming because these are like games that are owned by Rare, and I'm assuming now owned by Microsoft, that all of these games have to be licensed out to be on the Ever Arcade.
Well, there's an Activision collection. Let's see. This is gonna have 15 games, including Beam Rider, Crackpots, Enduro, Demon Attack, Fishing Derby, Freeway, Mega Mania, Grand Prix, Pitfall, Private Eye, Skyjinx, River Raid, Space Shuttle, Star Master, and Tennis. So it looks like it's just a retro thing. I'm seeing a whole bunch of cartridges. Legacy of Kain collection, Data East collection, Tomb Raider collection. So it looks like there's going to be like cartridges, but it all looks like retro games. Nothing new, so to speak.
Well, I mean, it looks like from a quick Google search that there are issues with some of the cartridges not working. I mean, the system itself, it looks like, has some tech issues that are just part of the system. So I don't know if that's what Roberto is referring to, but we may have to shelve this. Again, the biggest problem I could think, if we're just talking about outside the company itself, is because we talked about Activision, we talked about Rare, both companies are owned by Microsoft. Is Microsoft willing to continue to license these games out? Because these companies can't use these games without Microsoft say so. So,
all right.
At least I would assume, unless there's some loopholes or something like that with some of the older games, but.
All right, and we do have one more question. It's coming from Justin, but I'm going to shelve that because it heavily references our topic of the week. So I'll come back to the question in a second, but let's jump over to our topic.
Do we at least want to read the question?
Let me go back to the question. He goes, just in addition to your discussion here, but aren't there a slew of digital-only gamers on Steam who buy games without physical copies exclusively? Past that, retro gamers that play digital emulators or pirated games because it's neither more accessible online or impossible to find a physical copy. I think there are counterpoints to consider and what consequences Sony will face, such as increase in piracy based on their policy to remove your purchases. So that was his question. Matt did post a lengthy response to it, but Matt also had left his notes for our topic of the week. So let's go into our topic of the week. Unless you guys have anything else to say about the other questions Evercade
keep
or
Roberto's question somewhere. Maybe Matt can fill us in midweek, and even because Matt won't be here next week either. But maybe if we ask Matt, hey, could you shed some light on this, and we can come back with a better answer. Because I'm not familiar with Ever Arcade.
well, Matt is in the chat right now. So Matt, if you do want to drop some knowledge on us, I will read it on the show. All right, so let's go into our topic of the week.
Toe. Topic of the week. Well, fine then. Fuck you, Matt.
Okay, well, Matt responded with no, so I guess he's not going to fill us in. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Physical disc production ended in January of 2028 for new games releasing on PlayStation consoles. Oh, they're also closing down the PlayStation Store on the PS3 and the Vita as of July of 27. And Sony says it doesn't plan to sell hardware at significant losses, but is monitoring the market with the PS6 in mind. All right, so those are three things that we have to get into. One, it's ironic that they're announcing that they're closing the PlayStation Store, because I think it was a couple weeks ago, we even questioned whether those stores were still open. And, well, now they're only open for another year. All right.
We'll go ahead and comment on this. I don't have an issue with that. Again, like we kind of got into a background discussion with Will on this, where he does not like the idea of them closing down the PS3 store because there's things he may want to buy. So, which I understand, but you have a full year, and how many years since the PlayStation 3 released? If you're going to buy something from there, do it within next year. You've got plenty of time. And if you don't, then you have no complaints.
All right. All right. So let's get into the biggest topic. Sony's stopping physical discs being made for the PlayStation consoles. Now, I'm going to say this, and
is this Sony, or is this for all discs for the PlayStation consoles?
That's what I was going to say, because when I read this announcement initially, what I heard was Sony is not releasing their games on disc anymore. It was going to be digital only. So I argued with people, and I say argue with quotation marks, online, saying this is just for the PlayStation games. The PlayStation Studio games. Because the argument was, well, the PS6 isn't going to have a disc drive anymore. And I argued saying, well, they're going to need a disc, because if third-party publishers make their games on disc, Sony is basically saying, if they don't put a disc drive on the PS6, then they're basically saying third parties, you can't release your games on our systems. So I understand that sounds a little bit ignorant, because, well, you could always still buy it digitally, but I think if Sony doesn't release a disc drive with the PS6, they're going to alienate the third parties and piss them off, and I don't think Sony wants to do that. So, my level of understanding right now is it's just PlayStation Studio games that are not being made on disc anymore, which I'm fine with. If it's you cannot release a PlayStation 6 disc or a PlayStation version of your game for the PlayStation 6, I think that's a much bigger problem. I'm going to open up to the floor because, again, there's a lot of things. Matt does have a plethora of notes here that I will go through and read, but I wanted to give you guys the first opportunity to say something before I go into Matt's thoughts. Yield, do you want to go first, or you want to let Alex go first?
No, Alex can go first.
Alex, the floor is yours, sir.
Oh boy, I get to step on this landmine first. Look, I will very much clarify my stance on this, and that I'm very much for people to have the choice to buy physical media or to buy digital. I, as someone who has purchased games digitally and will continue to purchase games digitally, that's just, I don't like clutter. I look at the last PlayStation system I bought physical games for was the PS3, and all the time when I'm going through my house doing some cleaning throughout various parts of the year, I always look at those games and be like, man, I never play any of these. You know, I just played through Darksiders on the PS5. I bought another edition of Darksiders, even though I still have Darksiders on the PS3. So I could have just replayed it on the PS3. But For me, I have gone past physical media in one weird instance. All my music is digital. I don't buy movies anymore, and I only buy PlayStation games digitally. Nintendo consoles. I bought all my Switch games on the cartridge, and when I buy a Switch 2 and Ocarina of Time and Star Fox, I will buy the cartridges. It's the one weird instance where I will get the physical media. But in general, I've graduated completely digital. But that doesn't mean that I want to force everyone to go digitally. I think it's a choice we should be able to make, and I'm interested to see how all of this plays out. So, me personally, it doesn't affect my buying habits, but I understand why other people are pissed about this. And it's weird because this wasn't someone who leaked news, right?
Sony said this.
Sony has until this is not happening for a few more years now, or a year and a half. And Sony chose to put on their own blog this news after the news of them removing certain movies, losing the rights and removing movies from, the people had paid for from their accounts without reimbursing them. So it's a weird time to announce this. You could have done it, say in January of next year, give people a year, which is plenty of time still, and kind of gotten away from this news. But oddly, Sony chose now to do it. It's kind of a weird choice. But no, that is my stance initially, is that I don't want people to not have the choice. I think people should have the choice, but that is not the way this industry is moving. And kind of, unfortunately, going forward, if you want to play games, you may just have to accept that could be buying a digital license. And that's unfortunately, because if Sony is making an all digital console, it is too late to go back and change that. It takes so long to make a video game system that I think that they kind of they would have committed to it from the start in building this thing in R&D. And so very much, I think part of this is that they are moving towards, if they can get third parties on board, because I honestly think Ubisoft's, EA's, all that, I don't think they give a shit about producing discs for people. I think there are smaller companies that want to produce discs so everybody can play them and everyone can have it their way. Wolverine will have a disc, as Insomniac came out and said after the GTA reveal of the price and all that. So there are some companies that will want to do this, but overall, a lot of the companies I don't think want to deal with discs or disc production. So I think that Sony is doing something that a lot of companies will follow in doing. I don't think you're going to have a hard time convincing Ubisoft to go discless. And unfortunately, regardless of what Insomniac wants to do, they're owned by Sony. And they have to kind of do what Sony says. So that's where we are. But I do want to clarify that I'm not into forcing people to not buy discs anymore. I want there to be a choice, but unfortunately, I don't have a vote in the matter. So that is my stance.
I think Sony making this announcement when they did was they were trying to soften the blow, because we had the big news that, like you said, GTA 6 was going to come digital only, that even if you bought the collector's edition, there was not going to be a disc. It was going to be just a code inside of it. So I think Sony coming out right after that news, they were kind of going, okay, we can kind of share the bad news at the same time. That's my opinion. I think they were trying to soften the blow, and it really backfired. The floor is yours.
It also backfire in another way, as in people who maybe own both consoles, then go buy GTA on the Xbox.
Yeah, but as you guys reported last week, the PlayStation is out pre-ordering them 8-1 right now. So
that was before this news came out.
Right, but when the news came out, everybody knew that they were pre-ordering the game on PlayStation, knew they weren't getting a disc. So I was going to say, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Well, okay, it was a big deal, but GTA is not getting the kind of hate that Sony's getting right now for this, making basically the same thing. Saying the same thing.
You've also heard Rockstar is trying to separate themselves from Sony right now a little bit.
That's rumors and speculation. There's been nothing about it. Yes, Sony did remove their branding off their PlayStation app and whatnot. That's a fact. But we don't know if that's just coincidence, and the marketing contract might have just only been like a week or so. We don't know that to be true.
You don't, but it's a coincidence, and I find it hard to believe that you're going to change the app to look like GTA colors, and then all of a sudden we're back to PlayStation Blue.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Yield.
I'm just saying,
Listen,
where there's smoke, there's fire.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I do think it's some kind of a coincidence, but also, and this is where you guys call me the PlayStation show, whatever you want. I think Sony even changing the PlayStation app logo to reflect GTA, I think that was bad on Sony to do because they don't change the app for their own games. Why are they changing it for GTA?
Well, because GTA is the biggest game in the industry.
Yes.
Well, maybe you could argue Minecraft is the biggest game in the industry,
to me, that's Sony showing favoritism towards one particular game, and I don't think Sony was right for doing that. That's just my 2 cents. Yield, the floor is yours as far as discless moving forward for the PlayStation.
So I agree with Alex with the gamer should have a choice, whether you want to go digital or whether you want to stay physical. You know, there are games that I buy digitally, but I am probably 85-90% physical. I'm not surprised by this in the sense of Alex is right. The industry is going towards digital. They've been pushing it, ever since. Everybody got on Xbox's case last generation when they were going to go digital, and everybody's been posting it this week of PlayStation's famous troll of this is how you share a PlayStation 4 game. And so I think that it would, unless the 6 is launching in 28, I think they would have maybe been better off by just going, hey, this new console is going to be discless. I see it different than Tricky. I don't see it as it's just the PlayStation games. I see it as anything published on PlayStation will not have a disc. I've seen some articles pop up where they didn't list the developer, or I didn't click on the article, but there are developers that are like not happy with the whole discless announcement. So I'm not a fan of it, especially after they took away your movies, and as you could hear, I was like, well, they lost the licensing. I think it's BS. They didn't make the licensing people, somebody offer people a refund of some sort because you took things off their system that they had purchased. Going fully digital just leans more into the fact of you don't own that game. You don't even own the digital license. So who's to say, and I will use Ricky's, as we like to say, his shovelware as an example. Let's say Tricky, because we had the article a week or so ago about them taking off a bunch of games. Let's say you've bought a bunch of those games and Sony takes them off the store. They're gone. If you've played them or not, purchased them or not, they're gone. We don't want this stuff on our store. And they tell you, oh, sorry, should have played it while you had the chance. You'd be a little honked off. And
absolutely.
That's how I feel this is going. They can control their games. If a developer decides they get mad at Sony and we're done with you, you could be locked out of your game. And it doesn't sit right with me. That's where we're going, and it's either get on the wagon or get left behind. And I'm fully okay with that, and I'm fully okay with getting left behind. I feel that you're alienating your gamer base, especially those who have crappy internet connection. They can't access stuff digitally. So now, the whole slogan of PlayStation is where you come to play is not necessarily true, because you're telling the people that if you don't have good internet, you can't play our games. So it doesn't sit right with me. And that's where I'm at.
All right. Let me go back to Justin's question. If you guys remember, he was talking about digital gamers, Steam, emulators, stuff like that. Match response. Since I won't be on tonight, I'll respond and just say I do touch upon this a little bit, which I'm going to get into in a minute with his opinions. His preferred platform is PC. I spend way more on my hardware than I do on any other console. As a predominantly digital gamer, I still value other gamers' choice. On PC, we have GOG, which provides actual executables on purchase, meaning we can save it on our PC and no one can take it from us. But yes, there are a ton of digital-only gamers, and this is in part why Sony is doing this, what they're doing. Plenty of people pirate. Matt prefers the word preserve because access to old games is not available, no stock, or they're extremely expensive. There's more considerations too. Hope the team answers your question thoroughly, though, tonight. All right, so do you guys want to respond to Justin, or do you guys want to leave that to me?
What's Justin's question again?
It was long, but I'll read it again. Just in addition to your discussion here, but aren't there a slew of digital-only gamers on Steam who buy games without physical copies exclusively? Past that, retro gamers that play digital emulators or pirated games because it's either no more accessible online or impossible to find a physical copy. I think there are counterpoints to consider and what consequences Sony will face, such as an increase in piracy based on their policy to remove your purchases.
Well, I think of everybody who plays games, the people who went digital first would be PC. I think PC players kind of were okay with going to a digital. I mean, you look at the popularity of Steam. I feel like that helped condition PC players to be okay with not having a disc or having a physical copy. So I feel like before console gamers, I think are holding on to discs longer than PC gamers ever would. So I think, yeah, in the PC community, there's tons of people who play without caring about a physical disc. So, and you can just see that in the popularity of Steam, like the most dominant platform there is. And, does this encourage more piracy? I mean, here's the thing. Sony came out and said something that we all kind of know is going to happen, but they were dumb enough to say and acknowledge it, and people are pissing them for it, just like Ubisoft. Ubisoft came out and said, hey, you don't own your games. We all know that. But you came out and said it, so now you're enemy numero uno. So we all know these things. It's just these companies come out and say it out loud, and then we get pissed at them.
Well, I would argue and say that there's a lot of people out there that either don't know that they don't own their games, and that when you put down your $60, $70, $80 that you literally just buying a license to play the game. One, I would say there's a lot of people that don't know that. And two, there's a lot of ignorant people out there that think, no, I own this game. And they use the argument saying, well, no, I'm not trying to throw Will under the bus, but Will could go to his shelf, pull off a game, and sell it to anybody he wants. And that creates the illusion that you own the game. But in reality, for years, and there's use Donnie, for example. Donnie still says, I own my game. But in reality, as we know, and we've said this on the show many times, when you put down your money, you're not buying the game. You don't own the game. You only purchasing a license to play the game. And yes, with digital games, as both of you guys have pointed out, they could yank that license at any time. They did it, like Yul just said, they did it with those 550 movies. It happens. But, Yul, do you want to respond to Justin?
Well, here, hold on.
I'm sorry.
Will it cause everyone to run to piracy? No, because I don't think everyone's going to. It may push people away from spending money on games. It may push people away from spending $60, $70 on games. But some people may see it as a call to piracy, or that now they have the right to, or that it's the best. If they can't spend their money and basically own something tangible they can hold in their hands, or something that they can keep forever and go to at any point. Yeah, there may be some people that turn to that, but as a mass movement, I don't think you're all of a sudden going to see a mass movement to piracy. I think there's always been a group of people that have been comfortable with doing that, while there are others who are not.
I don't think piracy needs any encouragement. People that are going to pirate are going to pirate.
Encouragement, but as we get more and more into the, people will feel emboldened by this news.
If people are going to pirate, they're going to pirate. This isn't going to change people's opinions on it. Yield your thoughts on Justin.
So I had to go to the restroom. I didn't hear Justin's question.
Basically, he says, with Sony's thing, is it going to push people to emulators and pirating?
There will be a group that does that. How big or small, I do not know. I would like to say that if purchasing isn't owning, piracy isn't stealing.
I hate that phrase so much.
So, but with Sony's announcement and Sony's actions lately, I think you will see that tick up, and then you will see a group of people, me including, that will raise the Jolly Roger and be like, yeah, go right ahead. But if you don't own it, then it's not stealing.
I hate that so much. All right, Matt's thoughts. I'm going to go through them. If I say something that you guys want to respond, please stop me before I, so I don't have to go back and recap something. Matt's thoughts. I say this fully acknowledging my preferred platform of PC is only digital. I think this is a bad move despite Sony's claim of approximately 80% digital, 20% physical sales. I've actually seen it's 85-15, but I'm not going to split hairs there. Some of the power of consoles was given players choice. They could download digitally if they wanted, or they could seek a physical version. When I wanted Ghost of Tsushima and didn't want to pre-order, I was able to go and download it digitally. That was a choice I made based on the current circumstances. Now it appears Sony's taken away that choice. While sales on the PlayStation are regular, there is a potential issue with a monopoly. Currently, God of War Ragnarok on the PSN store is for $70, but I can go to Walmart and pick it up physically for less than $40. While it's also available on PC, that will not always be the case for first-party titles since Sony has decided to move away from the PC market. So now you're beholden to Sony's platform. Can you buy game codes on other digital storefronts? Yes, but many of them can potentially be gray or black markets that Sony can revoke your license if they don't like how the key was obtained. Now, I will say this to that part. Yes, you can go to a retail store and get the game for cheaper, but there is a good chance that that retail store is selling that game at a loss because they paid Sony to purchase. A lot of people don't understand that a retail store buys the game from Sony. What the store does after that does not affect Sony because Sony already has their money.
Correct.
So if you go to Walmart, Best Buy, GameStop, whatever, and you get it on a cheaper price, yes, that's good for you, but that does not mean that Sony's taking a hurt on it. Does that make sense to everybody? Good.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. Sony just deleted purchases of digital movies users bought. They didn't just delist them, they actually removed them from the users' libraries due to licensing issues. What's to say they don't remove GTA at some point because of a music license in the issue? Games on Steam get delisted all the time, but the amount of times it's removed from people's libraries is pretty low. I think we could all agree that if the game gets delisted, it gets delisted for whatever reason, but Sony in no way, shape, or form should be removing them from people's libraries. We all agree on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next thing Matt says, which leads me to the PS6. If the PlayStation 5 Pro is $900, I can't see a new system launching past 2028 being less than $1,000. But I think I'll sit somewhere more in the $1,200 to $1,500 range. They're basically lining up the new system to be a PC with none of the benefits. You can only buy it from one store. You can't physically own games. You have to pay for online, and I suspect you won't be able to use the peripherals other than their own. Look at the earbud situation on the PlayStation Portal. Comments online are just showing people being forced into a digital console that may just go for PC gaming. I don't think this is going to put people to PC gaming. I think, if anything, it pushes them to the Xbox, but I also don't see that happening. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
I I mean, if, it depends on what a PC rig costs at that time. If a PC rig is fairly close, yeah, I could see some people jumping to PC. I mean, really, it depends on what Xbox does. If Xbox pulls a Sony on them and goes, "This is how you share your games," I could see a lot of people switching. So we'll have to wait and see what they do. I've made my comment, and I'm perfectly fine with just staying where I'm at or going back and playing my retro stuff.
All right, Alex.
So, I mean, I think that if Sony's console is going to cost, over 1,000, Microsoft will too. Now, maybe there'll be a model that I guess you could argue that maybe Microsoft, with comments that have been made about the Series S, they want to avoid having two models and splitting their base and having developers have to deal with two different models. But maybe you see a less expensive model, but I mean, for the high-end models of Sony and Microsoft, if one costs over 1,000, the other one will too, or damn near it. So I think Sony and Microsoft are not going to have to worry about physical or digital, because when it comes to that point, and if you're charging people over $1,000 for a console, I think a lot of people will not buy it. They will wait for a major sale or see if there's a refresh, but I think a lot of people may. Over $1,000 is kind of like doubling what people have been comfortable spending on a video game console. So what?
I was going to say, while I think the PlayStation is going to be more expensive, the PlayStation 6 is going to be more expensive than the PlayStation 5 at launch, I don't necessarily see it being over $1,000 unless they come out with a pro version at the same time than the two different SKUs. I do see it being more expensive, but I don't necessarily subscribe to that it's going to be over 1,000. It really is going to come down to the RAM situation and the memory situation that the PC market is facing right now. If Sony is able to cut some kind of deal or those prices come down, I don't see the console being as expensive, but it is very possible. And I'm not saying this to sugarcoat anything or to shill or anything. I don't see Sony being able to release the next system over $1,000, and honestly think they're going to be successful with that. All right, so let me go back to some comments from the chat. Dex says price point on Steam helps Sony overprice their digital content. Continue to overprice their digital content. And then he agreed with you, damn right, Yield. You made a point before. I forgot to point it out at the time, and I forget your point right now. I apologize. Joe says there's an issue with licensing as a whole, and it goes for all digital content, not just Sony. That's a good point. Joe also says Xbox is going all digital as well. I believe so, too. I'm just waiting for the announcement, and Xbox is probably going to wait a long time before they confirm that. Dex says, I don't know. I'm an avid collector of my WWE games physically, something I've done since I was a kid. Now past 2027, I can't physically have them. Again, me and Yield are different on this point, and I'm not disagreeing with Yield. Just the initial announcement, I took it as PlayStation Studio games are not being released on disc. It could be third party. It could be everything. It could just be everybody just losing their minds and making speculations right now. I will just simply say that Sony needs to get on top of this and confirm whether or not third parties are going to be able to have their disc. Because I think if they're still going to have third party having disc, I think that will quash a lot of things. Or at least simmer them down. And then Joe says consoles are never going on sale like they used to. If anything, consoles get more expensive. Yes. This is the first generation where all three systems have gone up in price. So it might just be a trend.
Yeah, but if the sales are if they do release expensive consoles and the sales are terrible, they have no choice but to cut the price.
That is true. All right.
Because you can't not sell these consoles.
And Matt's last thought. Hopefully this firms my stance that through my preferred platform is all digital, Sony is taking the choice away from players. I assume Xbox will follow suit shortly, which leaves my Nintendo as the only one left. Maybe game key cards aren't so bad after all. Okay. See, okay. Before I go to your comment, Joe, I'm going to let you guys comment on Matt's last thought. You guys want to make any comment on that?
I guess I'll just make a comment overall is that, I think that one of the things Matt hit on was that Sony knows who buys digital and who buys physical, and they can see the sales of the console and how, those are spread out. So unfortunately, I don't think they would make a move unless the majority or the great majority of their players are playing digitally. This is kind of a big leap to say we're just not doing this anymore. And so I think the numbers that they have kind of back up that most of they still have a lot of people to sell to, even if they cut out physical copies of games. And I think this is going to be an industry move. I don't think this is just Sony doing, because you think about pricing for games, like, yeah, there are some games that'll still price $50, $60, but for the most part, when Sony and Microsoft moved to $70 games, Ubisoft, all these other companies did too. So this is going to be like an industry moving thing. What I interpret this as, and initially I thought it was just Sony. I think Sony is doing this because they've got other publishers in the wings too. And I think other publishers are also going to try to move away from disc publishing, which again, I really think that it seems like we're all in agreement. I don't know about Tricky, but I think everyone seems to be in agreement that you should at least have the choice to buy a physical game.
Oh, no, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Okay. Well, everyone agrees. Unfortunately, you just may not have that choice because I think that the industry, if those numbers are true, 85, 80, whatever the numbers are, I think even if people say, well, we're not going to buy games anymore, I think that the industry will just move on without them. And I think that they make these announcements fully aware of that and to take that on. Now, is everyone who says, well, if you're not going to put games on physical, I'm going to stop playing games or I'll only play my older systems? 100%, some of those people are lying. 100%. Now, some people may take that to the grave and take it seriously and just go and not buy games anymore. I can get that from some people, but I think some people are lying when they say that.
Yield is not one. Yield's stubborn enough that he'll stop.
I will die on that hill.
No, I will call Yield on this show. I will call him out on this show right here with him on it. Do I think that Yield will ever buy a console above $1,000? No.
No.
Do I think that Yield will play more retro games? Yes. But do I think that even if we move to an all digital future that Yield will never buy a new video game again? No, he will. This is his chosen hobby. He's not going to go to knitting. He's not going to start landscaping. So he will find a way to play the games he wants to play, whether that be via sale or something like that. So do I think Yield is completely done with new games with this? No, I don't. And I'll say that here in front of him. But do I think that he will stop buying games at full price? Sure, I can see that. Could I see him waiting years and years to buy a console? Sure.
He doesn't buy games at full price now.
That's not true.
Well,
I buy games at full price.
I'm making a bold statement, but for the most part, how many times have you said I'm going to wait for it to hit the bargain bin?
If it's not a game that I'm planning on playing right away, quite often.
Right.
But there are several games a year that I do purchase day one.
I was
there will be some games along the way that Yield will want to play.
I'm sure as much as I'm sitting here going F digital. The new console comes out and they drop something that I've been dying to play.
A new siphon filter.
I may get sucked back in, but Alex said, it's going to be years when that console price comes down.
Oh, and I think that the one thing I will say confidently is Yield will take this as an opportunity to cut his spending on games. I could absolutely see that. But I think that everyone who plays games or who has put as much time into games as we have, it's difficult to just stop doing that because we've done it since we've grown up. We've done it in our childhood, and it's just your chosen hobby, and we chose to do the hobby because we enjoy it. So you can cut back and you can cut, here and there. I just find it hard to believe that all these people who are like, well, fuck it, I'm done, are going to just stop doing it. There's only so many times you can play like your NES games before you're just like, man, I want something new.
All right. Yield, do you want to say something before I piss everybody off?
So
Yeah, Guild, let's get out of the way of the fire before he
I've seen a lot of people come on, through the internet say that they've canceled their Plus, and okay, whatever. That's not going to affect Sony.
That's stupid.
And I've seen a lot of people come along and say, don't buy any games from PlayStation the rest of the year or through 28. Just stick it to them. And while I commend you for your thought, I would like to just go, if you really want to stick it to them, don't buy digitally, buy physically from here until 28. And that would show them, because you'd flip-flop their numbers. I'm also very surprised at how many people are annoyed by this. I really thought I was a minority of people that were like, I'm physical. And it seems like there are more people annoyed by it. Now, if it's more annoyed by, like the rest of us on the show that are annoyed by the fact of you took away my choice, I don't know. And that might be what it is. But I was pleasantly surprised of how much pushback the gamers seem to be making of Sony's statement.
Yield, can I cut you off and just throw a counterpoint to you?
Well, you can. I was done. That was my last statement.
Okay. I'm going to say this, and understand, I mean no disrespect.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus, here we go. Here's one of these I don't mean to be a bitch comments, but I'm going to rear back and kick you in the testicles.
No. Because what Yield just said, I have seen a lot of outrage. But
a lot more than what I thought.
But I don't think it's the numbers you think it is, because what I think it is the vocal minority is speaking up right now, and the people that have gone all digital aren't saying shit because it don't affect them. So you
might very well be right, but you know what? Keep pushing back, guys.
Okay, to that point, I saw a petition being circulated on social media that, these online petitions, get this company to do this. And one of the petitions was to petition Sony to still make digital games. I've watched that petition from the day it started to yesterday, and it's only got 35,000 votes on it. 35,000 people ain't putting a dent into what Sony's numbers are. That being said, listen, I'm not trying to hate on anybody. Yes, everybody should have their choice. But this is where I'm going to piss people off. Sony came out and said 85% of their game sales have been digital. 15% have been physical. Listen, I don't, and I say this with respect, I cannot stand when people are so ignorant to the fact that Sony going digital is because it's better for them. I can't stand when when people go and they say this company should do this even though it's costing them money. Every company on the face of this earth has an obligation to their shareholders, to their company, to their employees, to be as profitable as they can be. If the market is showing that 85% of your audience is buying your games digitally, then why waste the money and make it the discs? I get it alienates 15% of the population of PlayStation gamers. I get that. I feel for you. Seriously, I do. But it's not unique to the fact that most indie games and developers don't release their games on disc. They're all digital. Why? Because it costs them more money to press a disc than to send it to a digital front and get more sales. Sony is in the business of making money. People are going, yeah, they're going to save money for not printing the disc anymore, but they don't pass that savings on to us. That's the point of business is to make as much money as possible. We've had the argument for years that a digital game should be selling cheaper than a physical game because it doesn't cost Sony as much money to to release the game. It's a valid argument. But on the same token, flip it around. Sony being able to sell that game digitally puts more money in their pocket. More money in their pocket means they can pay their developers. You can pay your developers. We're getting bigger and better games. It's all back and forth. I get for the 15% of the people that are not going to buy their games physically. I get for people like Will and Daryl who have collections and they buy and sell on the used game market. I feel for you guys. Sincerely, I do. But we've all known digital was coming. All digital was coming. We've known this for years. And now that it's actually happened, people want to be outraged. I just don't see it. I don't feel compassion for those people, that the vocal minority that's out there. Yield, I love you like a brother. You know I do. It sucks that you're not going to be able to buy your games physically, but you've known this was coming for years.
Oh, I said that.
Okay? I get the people crying, but that petition, now granted, that's a small sample, that's social media, take it with a grain of salt, but 35,000 people, and what? Sony sold, what, 90 million PlayStation consoles? 35,000 people ain't a chip in the bucket. It ain't even a chip on the bucket. It's the amount of people that want physical compared to how many people buy digitally, it does not even compare. I really am not trying to piss anybody off. I'm not trying to anger anybody.
You're doing a bad job of it.
But we have to speak facts here. The facts are Sony's in the business to make money. 85% of their people are buying their games digitally. You cannot blame Sony for going this route.
So I think that, yes, companies are out for profitability and they have to answer to shareholders. I think part of your profitability, though, as a company is you provide a service to people that people see that it is beneficial to them to use. So Sony and for people who buy PlayStations, they see value in having a Sony console because they enjoy the games that Sony puts out. It's not just Sony trying to make as much money off possible and screw what people think. It's we provide you a service, and because we provide you good service, you as our customers feel like supporting our company because you enjoy the products we put out. It needs to be a mutually beneficial thing. It can't just be like, well, Sony needs to make as much money as possible. So, because Sony, if they want to make as much money as possible, could charge, twice the price, 3 times the price for Plus and tell people to do it or, get over it. So there is an aspect of it that needs to be you're profitable because you have people who want to invest in your business because you provide them with a service.
Absolutely. All right, let me just catch up on some chat here. Joe, I said I was going to address your comment. I'm going to read the other ones. And I'm going to come back to that. Joe says, how many of these people are gamer versus collectors versus filthy resellers? I kind of addressed that already. Joe also said that I'm about to Brock Lesnar Yield. Yield, I don't think I was mean to you, was I?
No.
Okay. He also says 80,000 people is chump change. I don't know what 80,000 was, but okay. Joe also says digital is the future. In 20 years, your PS5 won't even work. Stop crying. And then he says digital games should not be cheaper. You're paying for the video game, not the packaging. I don't know if I can go with you on that, Joe, because
Joe, you can die on that hill. I'll leave.
Yeah,
you're
gonna die on that hill.
Listen, I support the games being the same price because it puts more money in their pockets, but it does not change the fact that it's cheaper for them to release the game digitally than physical because you don't have to pay for the packaging, you don't have to pay for the shipping, you don't have to pay for the disc and all that stuff. And I see the argument that digital should be cheaper because it's not costing them as much money to produce it.
You also completely cut out retail. You cut out GameStop, you cut out Walmart, you cut out Best Buy.
Right. Because, and also, what a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people don't realize is while you're paying $70 for Ghost of Tsushima, Best Buy probably paid Sony $40 for that game. So Best Buy is, making a $30 profit, but out of that $40 that Sony sold it to got from Best Buy, Sony had to pay for the packaging, Sony had to pay for the shipping, Sony had to pay for, the disc and the press and all that other stuff. So it's not that much of a profit. So let's be real there. Okay.
Now, I would like to put in on this.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Matt just said retail margin is usually $2 max. Okay, so my numbers are off, but my point, I think you guys understood my point. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
So I was saying, if we knew where that money went, let's just, Matt saying this $2. If we knew that $2, and I've said this before on other podcasts or other shows, and we've talked about this. If I knew that $2 went to the developer, it would be easier for me to get some more things digitally because I pay the same price, as I can at the store. Because I know the developer's getting the money. But if Sony's pocketing the money, and I don't know why, I can't put my finger on it, I'm not as okay with it. And that's why I've always been, if you want me to drop $70 on a brand new game, I'm going to go buy it physically, not digitally.
All right. Going back to Joe's comment. Joe said Sony is not making any more physical discs after 2028 because Sony manufactures the discs. That is not true because I also saw that comment online and I looked it up. While Sony is the majority owner of Blu-ray technology, it's a third party that produces and makes the discs. It is not Sony that makes the disc. It's an independent third party, and they did that on purpose to make sure that there was not one owner of Blu-ray technology that was forced to pay for the production. They all got together and hired an independent third party to make the disc. So that is not true.
So here is something then. So when a disc is gold,
correct,
ready for production, is it the developer that pays for the pressing, or is it Sony?
I believe it's the publisher. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. But going back to your comment right before when you were saying that $2, if you knew that $2 was going back to Sony, I was going to cut you off and ask you, do you want to clarify? Because if it's Ghost of Tsushima or it's Spider-Man or it's Wolverine, that $2 going back to Sony doesn't bother me. Because Sony is paying for Insomniac, Naughty Dog, all those studios to make their games. If you talk about that $2, say, on an EA game, and that money is going to Sony, then I have the problem. That money should go back to EA. Whoever the publisher is, I think the money should go to, not the console people. Because Sony, not only do they make the consoles, but they are also a publisher of the games. So in that aspect, if that profit margin is going back to Sony, I don't have a problem. If that profit margin is going back to the console maker, that's where I have a problem with it. Does that make sense? I think I said that wrong.
No, I understood what you were saying.
Okay. That being said, we're closing up on the 2-hour mark, and I did not realize we were so long. I'm going to wrap this conversation up because obviously there's going to be a lot of people that are going to feel about this. I feel like we can go and talk about this for another hour, and I don't want to do that, especially since Alex is the one editing this week. So let's wrap up the show. Before I do you guys want to make any final comments? Because I don't want to cut you guys short and not have you guys say what you want to say about this before we close it off. I'm assuming.
I'll just reiterate my position. I wish people had the choice to buy physical or digital. I think that is important. I think, though, we have to accept in the age that we live in, with the technology that we have, these companies are going to go, if the majority is there for digital and they can cut out physical and they can cut out these time-honored things that they've done, dealing with discs, dealing with middlemen, dealing with GameStop, I think they will cut it out. So unfortunately, even though I think a lot of people would say, it doesn't affect me if people have the chance to buy physical, me being a digital buyer, I don't care. It doesn't hurt me if someone would rather buy physical. That should be their choice. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it's going to be probably going forward. At some point, with new game sales, you are going to have to either buy digitally or just opt to not buy at all.
All right. My final thought is just I think Sony needs to come out and clarify if this is meaning that no PS6 disc games are going to be made, or is it just their games? I think Sony needs to come out and clarify that as soon as possible, because I think if it's just their first-party studio games that are not being made on disc, I think that will quash down some of this outrage. Yield, I'll leave it up to you. Any final thoughts?
Nope. Physical forever.
All right. Let's wrap up the show. Alex, your shout out, sir.
I want to give a shout out to our community, the awesome folks that listen, the people that drive us forward and continue to support us. Thank you to our listeners. You guys are awesome. Give a shout out to Matt for putting our agenda together this week. Give a shout out to my co-host Yield and Tricky. Give a shout out to Will for doing our artwork. Again, we wanted to have Will on this episode, but technically, it might have been difficult, and we really didn't want to have to, take the chance that something going wrong during recording and us not being able to put out a good show or have a show that had too many hiccups or too much background noise. So we definitely want to know what we know what Will's opinion is, but we definitely want to have Will on. We didn't know if it was going to work 100% with the way that we record. So shout out to Will for his artwork. And last but not least, give a shout out to my awesome and loving girlfriend, Ashley. We enjoyed yet another Ren Fair yesterday with some friends. So if you're in the area, definitely the Kentucky Highland Renaissance Festival is always a good time every single year. So I love you, hon. And that's going to be my shout outs.
Yield, your shout out, sir.
Shout out to Nitro and Prepare to Die Earth Scum for some roadcraft. Shout out again to Prepare to Die Earth Scum and the Brink 76 for running through some Helldivers. Shout out to Alex and Tricky for recording this evening, and a shout out to Matt for keeping the lights on for the World Cup and for doing the agenda this week and for hanging out in chat. Shout out to Joe and everybody else in chat that was throwing up some questions. Shout out to all the pimps and the madams of the whoredom. Twerp you to Sony and their all digital thing. Ain't got to be happy about it, but I know that's where we're going. And yeah.
All right. I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. I saw Dex, I saw Matt, I saw Joe. Appreciate you guys for popping in here. Matt, I do miss you on the show. I wish you could have been on the show, but I know you got other pressing matters to take care of. You're in my thoughts there, buddy. Shout out to the listeners. Shout out to Alex and Yield for showing up. I hope I didn't piss you guys off too much with my comments. Also to the listeners, I hope I didn't piss you guys off. I just, listen, I had to be blunt because I've been hearing this all week, especially from coworkers. They're asking my opinion because they knew I do the podcast. They're asking me all these questions, and I'm like, I don't really have the answers that you want, but this is what I know. Yeah, so that's it. And if there's nothing else, until next week, happy Trophy Hunt. Oh, shout out to Sweet Mama D, graduating high school.
See ya.
Love you, baby.
Later.
The theme song is Venus by the band Even off their album Zenith. Permission granted by the band and 12 Stone Records. You can find them on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/evenphilippines.